Okay, I think go ahead and call this meeting to order. The clock I'm looking at on the wall shows, I believe, 6:30, and the phone actually shows a few minutes after. So ask for the roll to be called, please.
Rogers,
Here.
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 Here, we do have a quorum. Thank you. And I'll just make note, I know Ms. Rogers is out of town, and if I remember right, Mr. Thorsland is out of the country. I assume, could be wrong, but I assume with his job, like often is. So you're stuck with me as vice chair. Move on then to approval of agenda and addendum. Moved by Mr. Farney, seconded by Mr. Owens. Is there anything wish to be corrected or changed or withdrawn? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye. 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 Any opposed? Thank you. Item 4, approval of minutes from the May 19th, 2024 regular meeting. Is there a motion to approve? Moved by Mr. Farney, seconded by Mr. Storr. Additions or corrections, comments on these? Seeing none, all in favor of approving them as presented, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. Those are approved. We are now on to 5, public participation. Remind the audience that we ask that you keep your comments to 5 minutes or less, and do have the timer on the screen. So thank you, Liz, for running that to help you keep moving. First off, I have Mr. Norm Davis, and ask that you would please state your name for the record. Yeah, turn it on.
Okay.
And you can just leave it
want
on.
to make sure. My name is Norman Davis. I'm the supervisor for Champaign Township, as all of you know. I'm here tonight to urge the Environment and Land Use Committee to work up some rules and regulations which would help circumvent the events and situation that developed at 2306 South Mattis with Mr. Andrew Hopper these past few months, and is continuing even as we speak. Mr. Hopper and that property have been a problem for me since I took my office 3 years ago. At first, it was just trash and the condition of the property, and now it has devolved into the situation that we have now. We are a community of laws, and as repeatedly demonstrated, some people push the boundaries of existing laws, forcing new laws to be made to keep dangerous or provocative behavior within societal bounds. The situation at 2306 South Mattis is a prime example of this. Last month, Mr. Hopper and Ms. Harper claimed that they wanted to know where their food was coming from. That's something I can applaud. But they also stated that they have an absolute right to have barnyard animals on their residential property. I would vigorously oppose this position, as their rights end where their neighbors' rights and society's rights begin. And with that stated attitude they have, they are not being very good neighbors. There are some laws and regulations already on the books, not in the county, but in the state, to help control this type of behavior. The Illinois Department of Agriculture has been tasked by the legislature to regulate Illinois farming industry. For livestock, the department uses the Livestock Management Facilities Program as a guide. It is a sane and very sensible approach to barnyard and livestock management and environmental protection. And I suggest the county board adopt its principles to guide it in regard to livestock in residential areas. Some of the restrictions when it comes to livestock in residential settings are mostly in the application aspect. Will the design, location, or proposed operation protect the environment? The situation at 2306 South Mattis does not, because later in the document the question is asked, is the facility located within a 100-year floodplain and other environmentally sensitive areas, which the house and property are. It butts up against the Finney Branch, which flows northward through a highly populated section of Champaign City and Champaign Township before it joins the Copper Slough to the west. Other questions include whether there are plans to minimize the likelihood of environmental damage to the surrounding areas from spills, runoff, and leaching, and are there any odor control plans? From the evidence given last month, Mr. Hopper does not have those plans, nor has he applied for the proper permissions from the Department of Agriculture. If he had, the county board would have been notified and a public hearing would have been held. Therefore, I would suggest that the county board affirm the livestock management facilities program for the entirety of the county. Now, this will not impact livestock operations, which usually are already in compliance with the act and the program. Further, I would suggest that the county board examine the city of Champaign's municipal code as it regards animals and adopt some of the provisions of the code. It does prohibit livestock, which can be modified for the entirety of the county. However, there are some sensible restrictions that are necessary. Remember back last fall when we were hearing about the serval that was loose in the counties west of us? That was quite a bit of concern, unless the animal attacks a human or a child. The city of Champaign prohibits dangerous animals such as lions and tigers and bears. Oh my! We cannot control the wild animals, obviously, but we can control domesticated and exotic animals living in the county. I urge this committee to examine the documents I have suggested and present them to the board as a whole for their consideration. There will always be people who see loopholes in existing rules and laws and will try to exploit those rules and laws to the detriment of their neighbors. Thank you. I will stick around also because I see that there is a question about the open pit burning in Champaign Township, so I'll stick around if you have questions about that. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Davis. Okay, next name I have is Mr. Eric Oth. And the microphone's still on. As I said, you can just leave it on when you're done. And again, if you could just please state your name.
My name is Eric Oth, and I appreciate the opportunity to speak here today. I agree wholeheartedly with what Mr. Davis said there, Norm. And rather than being redundant, just add a little bit more context here. Because, well, basically why we have zoning, my civilian understanding is that, well, people tend to aggregate and confine activities to certain areas. There's commercial, industrial, residential, agricultural, and there's certain normative behaviors that are expected. And when people kind of step out of what's expected, well, then we have the fun job of coming up with ordinances and regulations to say we need to kind of confine ourselves to what the spirit of these zones are. Well, that's what we have next door to my property at 2306 South Mattis, is somebody who's stepped out of the bounds of what should be acceptable behavior. And so because there are no ordinances to protect our neighborhood, I've had to go personally and enlisted an attorney in order to try to affect cooperation here. 3 weeks ago today, cease and desist orders were issued, personally served, and up through today, I have seen zero progress in creating the aberrations. And it was also my understanding from the attorneys who spoke that there would be cooperation forthwith. So having had a promise that there will be progress, and having witnessed none, I'm simply trying to underscore the need for future instances that there be some sort of governmental regulation that could prohibit or at least enforce some regulation to prohibit this kind of behavior. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Next I have, I'm sorry if I butchered this, is it Ms. Ender Socorro? turned it off if you push the button again. There you go.
I'm
You're-
sorry.
You're on. No, that's okay. No problem.
My name is Ender Socorro. I'm representative from Mill Creek Renewables. I'm just sticking around if any questions on the solar farms. We are the company that we're gonna be performing the construction, so we're just gonna stick around and support in any ways possible. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, I have Allison Harper.
Bear with me 1 second.
It's on. Oh, turn it once more. It was on. There you go. You're
There
good.
we go.
You're good.
All right. Hi. My name is Allison Harper. I'm probably the entire reason that there are livestock animals at the aforementioned 2306 South Mattis. And because that man loves me a whole bunch. Raising livestock and knowing where my food comes from has been a lifelong dream. And I've been pursuing it actively and blood, sweat, and tears, pouring my heart into it. And so this issue is very tender to me. I'm sorry if I get emotional. There are a few things from last meeting that I kind of wanted to address and touch base on. I saw a claim that when the roosters left, after the law change, that's when we brought in the pigs. And our 3 girls came to live with us on March 6th. It was in April, the end of April, that we received notice about the roosters. We made contact with Charlie Campo, and we pursued finding a place to rehome 1, and unfortunately had to kill 2. So that was 2 months after the pigs had been there, and no one noticed. It wasn't until we had just given them a different piece of pasture that was more visible that anyone said anything. In fact, any visitor that's come over, even my parents, who really don't care for farm stuff, they say, wow, it really doesn't smell over here. So just in defense of my animals, I did want to say that. Someone also asked if there's a definition of what a domestic animal is. And according to Champaign County Public Nuisance Ordinance, domestic animals are defined as any animal of any species kept for any purpose except those kept or raised for the purpose of producing an agricultural product, including but not limited to dogs, cats, primates, and birds. So very specifically, except. In fact, Champaign County is, at least on paper, quite supportive of agriculture. According to Champaign County's zoning ordinance, agriculture may be carried out on any yard, which is backed up in section 5.2, the table of authorized principal uses. Agriculture, including customary accessory uses, is permitted by right in every single zone in the county. That includes all agriculture, conservation, single-family, two-family, multifamily residence, manufactured home parks, and every type of business zone in the county. Just in case you were curious how Champaign County defines agriculture, it is the growing, harvesting, and storing of crops, including legumes, hay, grain, fruit, and the truck or vegetable crops, floriculture, horticulture, mushroom growing, orchards, forestry, and the keeping, raising, and feeding of livestock or poultry, including dairy, poultry, swine, sheep, beef, cattle, pony and horse production, fur farms, and fish and wildlife farms. And I'm going to skip the rest of the definition because it goes on about farm buildings and structures. I don't want to waste my time. But understandably, I was under the impression that what we were doing was well within our right. A small amount of livestock animals on a half-acre property. Now, this particular circumstance is soon to be changing. We will be moving our livestock to a more rural property that we were just able to secure. I don't know if you've looked at the price of land around here, but I can't afford very much. And the irony of last meeting and this meeting and what you're discussing later is how many acres are now not going to be available to farmers like myself because of green energy, which is great, but land is finite. And if I can only get 5 acres, this applies to not only me, but anybody with small land. If they can't raise chickens in their backyard, they didn't apply for whatever livestock permit that was being mentioned. This applies to everybody and not just me, and land is really hard to get. But my time's up, so I'm stopping.
If you can finish, take another couple minutes, go right ahead.
I skipped around because I was trying to make it faster.
Go right ahead.
I think I covered my points. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Andrew Harper.
She covered anything, I would say.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else for public participation? I do not believe so, so I will close that. Thank you, John, for shutting the microphone off. We will then move on to 6, communications. Are there any communications? Mr. Storr.
Thank you, Chair Esri. I have several. First, the good news. The Urbana-Champaign Sanitary District was recognized with the Sustainability and Green Infrastructure Award. This was a really big deal. The sanitary district is quite proud of it, and I am anxious to get over and take a look at the beautiful sculpture that they received. They also were recognized with Best Operator of the Year award. So good on them. I have also learned that Cronus, the folks that want to build the fertilizer plant that we've heard about for so very long, have apparently applied for and received an air permit from the Illinois EPA, and I thought that project was dormant or dead, but apparently it's proceeding. I attended a briefing from the US EPA on polyfluorinated alkyl substances, PFAS, PFOA, acronym that we're all learning about or have known about. And apparently the US EPA is concentrating their efforts to interrupt, stop, and find alternatives for the uses of PFAS. And so that's what they're doing. And they said during the briefing that monetary grants would be available for drinking water and wastewater. I was not so sure about biosolids that are a product of wastewater treatment, but apparently anybody that's spread some of those on their farm ground might, they're looking to kind of make them passive receivers and not have to do something to treat the PFAS that was in the biosolids that are on their property. A more contentious issue is carbon dioxide sequestration, Senate Bill 1289, which was passed in the past session. It turns out that some of the opponents to the sequestration are happy with parts of the bill, but it doesn't address the potential impact on overlying aquifers, including the Muhammad Aquifer. And so I'm working with some county board members and some scientific and engineering colleagues that to draft a letter addressing these issues, and I'll circulate it around the board when it gets completed. Those are all of my communications. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further communications by the members? Seeing none, we'll then move on to 7, new business, items for information only. I'll kind of read them out and give a few seconds for if you have questions to ask them. Or Mr. Hall, do you have any specific one you want to speak on? Okay. We have A, the email from Pat Gray regarding auxiliary dwelling units. We have B, the email from James Hitchens regarding community awareness of restrictions on burning of landscape waste. We have C, the email from Kathleen Bryant regarding Champaign Township burning of landscape waste. So those both, if you did have a question of Mr. Davis, he's willing to try to answer them at least if you have one. He was so kind enough to stick around. And then we have D, the email from Champaign Township Supervisor Norman Davis himself. So if there's no questions or comments on those, Mr. Farney.
Yeah, this is probably more of a question for Mr. Hall. On the auxiliary dwelling units, is this, for Don and I being the new guys on the committee, is this something that this committee has looked into in the future or in the past? Is this something that's been on our radar? Or is this something that's, I mean, I would imagine it's coming down the road as they become more popular in other places around the country.
Well, auxiliary dwelling units are, I think it's safe to say, a trend in urban areas. But in urban areas, you tend not to have to add a septic system for each additional unit. You don't have a limit on the creation of lots like we have in the rural areas. The county board has limited the creation of lots since 1998,
Sure.
trying to protect and preserve farmland. That being said, the county board could, decide to provide some means for adding ADUs, but every ADU would add, presumably at least 10 trips a day to the rural road system. And just so many things like that, where thinking that you can add that many extra units in a rural area turns out to be, I think, a different thing than adding them in an urban area where the streets are paved, you're on central sewer, you have central water. So it's never been a popular topic for the county board.
Okay.
Maybe that's changing, I don't know.
Okay. No, I appreciate knowing that take on it, because those are things I would not have thought about, that you can't, that you would need a separate septic system just for, what's more or less the size of a large yard barn and things like that. So thank you. I appreciate your comments.
I'll just add, Mr. Farney, that I don't remember this specific topic in my years on here until now. Maybe I'm forgetting it, but I don't remember it specifically.
I remember back in the late 90s, Mr. Esri, the topic came up because there seemed to be this growing awareness of trying to help elderly parents age in place. And there was some attempt to allow that as with mobile home units. But again, it goes back to how much land, the septic system, the well, and things like that. And again, all those things can be solved, So it's just a matter of whether the county board, wants to really investigate it.
Thank you, Mr. Hall. Yeah, so that was definitely before I got on here back in 2011. Okay, if there's no further commentary. Oh, go ahead, Mr. Farnum.
I guess sorry,
Sure.
I'm
No.
the guy with questions tonight. To the issue of the township burning, do we actually have a say in any of this, or is this really more of an issue? I know they do a burn permit and things like that. Is that all that happens as far as our role in this?
Our burning ordinance exempts facilities operated by local government
That's what I
units.
thought.
This is a local government unit that is properly permitted, so
That's what I thought, and thank you for confirming that.
Mr. Davis does have something, so I'll allow him to speak to it.
Thank you for a new permit, and for the board's information, that permit was granted just yesterday. So we just have a new one, and it's good for 12 months. And so that the board knows that we are under very strict conditions for the burning of waste. Number one, we cannot start a burn if the wind is blowing more than 7 miles an hour. And we have to be very cognizant of which direction the wind is blowing from. It cannot be blowing from the south so that it does not affect the nursing home to our north. We can't have it blowing from the from the east onto the west, because there's that gas farm out there. We don't want embers happen to go over there and start a fire. And so we were very cognizant of what we have to do. We also have on the burn pit, by the way, is 20 feet long, 8 feet wide, and 14 feet deep. At no time do we put more yard waste in there than halfway. And we also have what is called an air destructor curtain that blows across the top of it to keep the particulate matter in the pit. Now, to be honest with you, the way it starts, we have to start it up and we get some particulate matter and stuff like that until the fire gets going really well. And then we turn the destructor curtain on, and it keeps the material down. Then, at least an hour before we quit for the day, and there, by the way, there is a person there all the time keeping watch on that. We don't allow it to burn without somebody on station. An hour before, we douse the flames with water. There are hoses that go to that and put the fire out. We let it sit a couple of days, and then we dip with a backhoe out of there and put it in what we call the burn corral. And people may smell stuff from that as it is smoldering and cooling off. But outside of that, there should be no problems. We do our very best to keep particulate matter down and the smell down. And as I said, we do have a permit, and we are looking at this as at every 12 months. So if sometime the EPA says that, I'm sorry, there's been too many complaints, we will have to find another way to take care of that. And last comment, the only things that are burned in that are trees and brush. We do not burn leaves in there unless they are attached to the tree limbs. Are there any questions?
Go ahead, Mr. Storr.
Have you guys considered possibly taking some of this stuff over to the landscape recycling over in Urbana, or
We
is
do.
it too
We
large?
we take almost all of our leaves over there. Sometimes we use the leaves in different places, very seldom, but almost all of our leaves are transported to the Landscape Recycling Center. And we pay for that. There is a fee for us to do that, and they compost it. We try not to do the heavy woody stuff to them because they have to use a grinder, and they use it for mulch, I understand, which they sell to the public. But with our burning it, we reduce the amount of material from, say, a ton down to 1,000 or down to 100 pounds. So we reduce it quite a bit. And then all of that goes to the Clinton landfill to be mixed in with their materials and it becomes part of their compost. Does that answer your question, sir? Okay, we do make use of the Landscape Recycling Center to the tune of about $10,000 a year. And I have to be cognizant of that because that is taxpayer money. Okay? Any other questions? Thank you, Mr. Esri, for letting me speak.
You're welcome. Thank you for answering questions, being willing to do that. Okay, we will then move on to Part 8, new business, items to be approved by ELUC. We have A, Recreation and Entertainment License, Taylor Feldkamp for Demo Derby at the Champaign County Fairgrounds, 1302 North Kohler Avenue, Urbana, 9/25/24 through 9/28/24. Moved by Mr. Farney. Is there a second? Seconded by Ms. Rodriguez. Discussion, questions? How many, I'll have one, just roughly, Mr. Hall, how many of these has he done? Would you estimate?
5.
Okay, thank you. And no issues, correct, that we've had with any, with
That's
them?
correct, no issues.
Thank you. Okay, seeing no other questions, comments, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? No, that passes. Thank you. Move on to 9, new business, items to be recommended to the county board. We have A, zoning case 11-S-23, a request by Anthony Donato, doing business as Donato Solar, Bonneville LLC, to authorize a photovoltaic solar array with a total nameplate capacity of 6 megawatts, including access roads and wiring as a second principal use as a county board special use permit, subject to the rezoning to the AG2 Agriculture Zoning District in case 109-AM-23 on approximately 17 acres of a 77.5 acre tract of land in the east half of the southwest quarter of Section 12, Township 19 North, Range 7 East of the 3rd Principal Meridian in Scott Township, and including a waiver of standard conditions for locating the photovoltaic solar array less than 1/2 mile from an incorporated municipality and within the contiguous urban growth area of a municipality per section 6.1.5B2A. And is there opposition to, if we could put it together, the decommissioning for the same solar farm, if that's okay with the committee? We then also I'll ask for a motion for both together, then the decommissioning and site reclamation plan for zoning case 111-S-23, a request by Anthony Donato, doing business as Donato Solar, Bonneville LLC, to approve the decommissioning and site reclamation plan for the photovoltaic solar array with a total nameplate capacity of 6 megawatts, including access roads and wiring, subject to the rezoning of the AG2 Agriculture Zoning District in case 109-AM-23 on approximately 17 acres of a 77.5 acre tract of land in the east half of the southwest quarter of Section 12, Township 19 North, Range 7 East of the 3rd Principal Meridian in Scott Township. Is there a motion to approve those two? Mr. Farney moves to approve. Is there a second? Seconded by Mr. Storr. Comments, questions on these? These being related, I have no problem putting them together since they're the same case. Mr. Farney?
So my question is, I guess, more of a procedural question. So when this goes to the board, this is not, since this is just for the special use permit, or for the waiver, I should say, when it goes to the full board, it's simple majority. Is that right? Okay. Just want to make sure of that.
Further comments, questions, Mr. Hall, do you have anything specific? I know we've seen this for a while, so, I mean, before.
I would just say this is the first time the petitioner has not been present at a meeting. Maybe we should have reminded him, but He's always here, so I have nothing more to add.
Okay, Mr. Owen.
I was just curious, Mr. Hall, are any comments from Scott Township related to this, or any feedback?
No, we know from the early parts of the process that the village of Bonneville was opposed. But once the map amendment was adopted, they stopped providing comments.
Thank you.
Okay, looks like we're ready to vote. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay? Nay. Okay, and we will then move on. It passes, but not unanimously, so it won't be on the consensus agenda. Then we are moving on to C, decommissioning and site reclamation plan for zoning case 903-S-18, a request by Luminance Holding LLC, Brookfield Place, 200 Liberty Street, 14th floor, New York, New York, 10281-1023, and participating landowner Judith K. Wirtz, St. Joseph, Illinois, to approve the decommissioning and site reclamation plan for a community photovoltaic solar farm with a nameplate capacity of 2 megawatts on approximately 12 acres in the AG1 Agriculture Zoning District. The subject property is a 121.79 acre tract comprised of part of Lot D of the proprietor's survey of land subdivision in Section 11 of Township 18 North, Range 10 East of the 3rd Principal Meridian in Sidney Township, and commonly known as the field east of the home east of the house located at 2032A County Road 1000 North, Sidney. Is there a motion to approve? Moved by Mr. Farney. There's seconded by Mr. Owens. Questions, comments on this? I'll just state, I guess, start, and Mr. Hall may have some comments. I know this was early in the when we were really getting the solar farms. We had kind of a flood of them at the county. This is one of them that was approved and basically didn't get drawn in the lottery by the state, is the way I understand it, to go ahead basically and proceed. And now with the passing of time, conditions have changed, and they are able to go ahead and proceed now, so that's why it's here. Mr. Hall, if you want to have anything you want to fill us in on specifically.
Well, I would just point out that the site plan here is a little different than what the board approved in the original case. Turns out that part of the original solar farm was pulled in the lottery, and they went ahead and constructed. And now this petitioner purchased the rest of it, and they've had to, I think it's fair to say, work pretty hard to make the site plan work for this next phase, but it does work. It meets all of our requirements, and so I think it's ready for consideration.
Okay, thank you. And we do have the petitioners here if we have questions. Mr. Storr.
Is there a local representative? I mean, because the folks applying are from New York. Is there a local representative that's going to have some oversight or responsibility?
Well, just like with every solar farm, there will be someone managing it on a day-to-day basis remotely, providing maintenance as needed. We have representatives here tonight from the engineering firm that is going to be submitting the drawings to us for actual construction if you have questions for them. But the local landowner is not here. They never come to these hearings. They leave it up to the developer.
Mr. Farney.
And this is already adjacent to an existing solar array. Are they the same company, or are they different companies going to have, behind this fence is company A and over on this side is company B? Is that how this works?
Different companies, and because the original site plan was really pretty minimal, meaning that they didn't have a lot of room to expand or make changes, that was part of the challenge of coming up with a way to have two solar farms side by side with different owners, different securities. And again, I think they've handled it very well.
They've handled it well. That's great. Thank you.
I have a quick question, Mr. Hall. Have there been any complaints about the existing solar farm from any of the nearby residences?
Not actually a complaint, but we had a neighbor give us a heads up that some of the vegetative screening had died out. The year that this went in, I think was 2020, and that summer ended up being quite dry. We've contacted that owner, and they're going to be replacing that landscaping. And as it turns out, half of their landscaping now is not even needed because this solar farm will be butting right up against it. But anyhow, the neighbors are keeping us aware of what's going on out there.
Okay, thank you. Further questions, comments? Seeing none, are we ready to vote? Looks like. So all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, that passed unanimously, but I'm going to just ask that we say that we keep it off the consent agenda. Again, like we did the last one, I believe Mr. Thorsman kept it off. The idea that it's just important enough and impactful enough, I guess you could say, in the community to, again, have at least the possibility, the chance to discuss it again at the full board. That's the only reason I would keep it off. And I'll be doing the same with D, just to let you know. So we're then to D, decommissioning and site reclamation plan and road use agreement. 91-138 for zoning case 907-S-18. A request by Luminance Holdings LLC, Brookfield Place, 200 Liberty Street, 14th floor, New York, New York. 1028-1, 1023, and participating landowners Mark and Christy Flumacher. 203 West Shelley Drive, Unit A, Thomasboro, Illinois, 61878. To approve the decommissioning and site reclamation plan and a road use agreement for two community photovoltaic solar farms, each with a nameplate capacity of 2 megawatts for a total of 4 megawatts on approximately 24 acres in the AG1 zoning district on a 153.23 acre tract in the northwest quarter of Section 12 of Township 19 North, Range 10 East of the 3rd Principal Meridian in St. Joseph Township, and commonly known as the farmland at the southwest corner of County Road 2350 East and County Road 1700 North. Is there a motion to approve this? Moved by Mr. Owen. Is there a second? Sure. Seconded by Mr. Farney. Thank you. Questions, comments on this? This is basically kind of the same situation as the first one as far as the lottery. Was it the same company that was going to build this one as the one that we just did approve and has since been bought by the Luminance? Mr. Farney.
Sure. My only question is, I was wondering about this agreement with the road district. They did this one back in 2018 when the original solar farm was built. Are those open-ended, or do they need to have a updated one?
The new St. Joe Township Highway Commissioner signed the road use agreement that had been developed back then.
Further questions, comments? Everyone probably looked at the map, but it's basically across the road from the St. Joe Sportsman's Club. They're just north of the interstate. Okay, seeing no further discussion, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay? Thank you. That passes unanimously, but again, just keep it off the consent for the chance to discuss it if any board members wish to at the full board meeting. Yep, thanks. We're then to E, resolution approving an intergovernmental cost-sharing agreement. Thank you. 139 dash, oh, that's the page number, duh. I'm sorry. Between the County of Champaign, the City of Champaign, the City of Urbana, and the Village of Savoy for an Illinois Environmental Protection Agency-sponsored one-day household hazardous waste collection event on August 17th, 2024. Is there such a motion? Moved by Ms. Rodriguez, seconded by Mr. Storr. Discussion on this. Mr. Storr?
These are very popular and quite necessary to keep these household hazardous waste out of the landfills.
Mr. Hall, do you have anything you want to specifically say on this?
Well, just will say that we're not doing this for certain yet. The EPA let us know they would have some openings, so our municipal team members demanded that we submit an application. We did that. We're waiting to hear. You see the next item is the contract for the State Farm Center. So we're trying to get all our ducks in a row. I don't know when we're going to find out, but the event is proposed for August 17th, so hopefully sometime soon.
Thank you. Yes, hopefully we do get that, the ability to put this on, because it is definitely wanted and needed. Further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? That passes unanimously. And to F, resolution authorizing agreement to rent the State Farm Center parking lot for an Illinois Environmental Protection Agency sponsored one-day household hazardous waste collection event on August 17th, 2024. Is there a motion for this? Mr. Owens? Mr. Farney, second. Any discussion on this? Go ahead, Mr. Farney.
I just double checked to make sure. That is the weekend before U of I move in, so perfect.
Go ahead, Mr. Hall.
I just wanted to point out to the committee that the State Farm Center has raised their prices this year. In the past, we would pay $1,000 for the Friday and Saturday. Friday to set up, Saturday the event. The price has doubled, so this year the cost will be $2,000 in total. But it is so convenient having a parking lot that big, so easy to get to. It's surprising. We've had no traffic queuing problems at the State Farm Center, even though there's not a lot of room for cars to queue there before they get in the street. But we've never had any problem. I hope I'm not jinxing it for this year. We did have a problem with our electronics recycling event recently. We just simply overscheduled, so we'll take care of that. Parkland is another great facility to do these things at, arguably better, but they're not interested in letting us do the household hazardous waste.
Thank you. Further discussion? Mr. Storr.
Has there been any problem with the household hazardous waste collection, like spills or anything that might put Parkland off on all this?
No, in fact, they covered the ground with plastic sheeting so that there is no hazardous waste collection that doesn't happen on a sheet of plastic, pretty heavy plastic. So I don't know why we've never done it at Parkland. I think it's arguably a better facility, but and it's a lot cheaper, but maybe that's something to investigate in the future. I'll have to ask Susan Monty, our former employee, who is still answering questions to this day. That's right. I'll ask Susan about that and see if there's a history there why that's the way it is.
Okay, further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? None. Okay, thank you. That passes unanimously. Other business, we have the monthly reports, which do not have any this month. Mr. Hall, I know, is plenty busy in his office. All of his staff is. Anybody else have anything would potentially fall under other business that they've thought of or needs to be brought up? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to Chair's report, of which I have none. And 12, designation of items to be placed on the consent agenda. We've got 9, E and F. which of course is, I believe everyone knows, if for some reason any one board member can pull it off, no problems. Just ask for it to be pulled off. And with that, I will move that we are adjourned. My phone says 7:23, and the clock that I was looking at looks like about 7:21. Thank you.